kids have you been getting?
All right, good morning, BRAINterns. Thank you all for joining us for day 5. I would love to, I'm gonna enable the chat. I would love for you to share what your favorite talk has been so far in the chat. We've heard from quite a few different panelists this week, and we've heard from Dr. D'Amico about spine metastases. We've heard from Dr. Cerulli about cerebral vascular surgery, Dr. Sean Rogers about pediatric neurosurgery, and many more. But I would love to hear who you or which talk has been really resonating with you so far. Let's see.
I haven't heard my talk yet.
I know, right? You might have a new favorite after this. Spine Met case was super cool. Good morning, everyone from Homosassa. Oh my gosh, happy birthday. Happy birthday, Malu. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, quick question about the t-shirts. Yes, so the t-shirts are now available for sale on our bonfire page. I will post the link in the chat. So the t-shirts aren't included in the program, but the proceeds from the t-shirts, all the profits go towards continuing our free educational programming and enabling us to continue bringing Lenox Hill neurosurgeries, clinical and clerical experts to you, so you can continue along your neurosurgical career journey. So I put the link.
Somebody asked about the schedule, where they can find the schedule each day. Also, they're just having trouble finding it.
I'm going to post the link to the schedule. It's on our BRAINterns website, so you can see what's going on next week. We actually have different panelists who are joining us next week. We're going to be having different talks than we discussed this week. So it's not going to be the exact same thing that you saw this week. And I know that Dr. Sean Rogers and Dr. Ben Shalom are going to be kind of like doing like a part 2 to their talks. So I highly recommend them tuning in. Good morning from Jacksonville. Happy Friday. And yes, it looks like, we have some fans of, when some of us are in the evening. So I know we're all coming from around the world. Thank you all for tuning in. I have some comments that people really enjoyed Dr. Ben Shalom's talk on neuroplastic and reconstructive surgery. Dr. Sean Rogers' talk on pediatric neurosurgery. Oh, yay. So happy to hear you guys have been enjoying. The second link, where it says /register, that's where you can get the schedule. I'll also post the link directly to the Word document, so you can just pull that up for your own reference. That's the link to the Word document. Survey will go out on Friday. I'm like, where are we? What month are we? Friday, July 21st, on the last day of BRAINterns, where you can indicate if you would like a certificate. So don't worry, the survey hasn't been sent out yet. All right, it is now 9:02, and I don't want to waste any of our next speaker's time, because we have Dr. David Langer in the house, and I want to make sure he has plenty of time to speak with you guys today. Dr. David Langer is the chair of the Department of Neurosurgery here at Lenox Hill Hospital. He is also the vice president of neurosurgery for the Western region of healthcare facilities and hospitals at Northwell Health. And he joined our department in 2011 and really established the Department of Neurosurgery here before we were combined with neurology. And he really helped us become who we are today. His vision has been integral in the growth of our department. Dr. Langer is specializes in cerebral vascular surgery, and he is you've probably seen him featured on Netflix, on Lenox Hill and Emergency NYC. Dr. Langer is very passionate about technology and how we can continue to implement it into our practice, and actually helped implement something called Playback Health into our practice, where we can connect with our patients and their families to help just make it easier for everyone to be on the same page. And we're just really excited for you guys to get a chance to hear from him. He's going to give a fantastic talk about his practice, his own personal journey as a neurosurgeon. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear from him. I'll stop chatting. It's your turn, Dr. Langer. Without further ado, I will shed the spotlight on you.
Thanks, Anna. I just saw Min Pham load up the link for an AI assistant. I just checked it out. I think that's the future. You know, I think what I learned in the last 10 years is things are always changing, and you have to make yourself better. It's if you don't focus on your mind and your mindset, then when new ideas come in, you aren't going to be prepared for them. And the AI thing's a typical example. I already clicked on the link. It's quite amazing. So click on that link. It's in the chat. I'll share my screen. In fact, you'll see I'm already, here's the chat. Look at this. It's ongoing, like what I'm saying the whole time, and it's note-taking and just amazing. So I'm going to talk about nothing to do really with neurosurgery, talking about mindset, mechanics, and hopefully we'll come away from this talk with a different way of thinking about how to be successful, not only as a professional, as a student, as a son or daughter, a parent, and hopefully you'll carry this through. I'm still learning. I've made mistakes. I'm vulnerable. I'm learning about myself every day, and I think you have to start. I wish I'd started a little bit earlier, this kind of thinking. So I just wanted to point out, I wish I had some more women on here. I have recruited a few women that are at Staten Island, but they aren't really part of our core group. I have to apologize for that more than I'm not sure why it happened this way, but nonetheless, this is the way it is. But it's still a great team. It's a diverse group of guys who have really contributed each in their own way. And I can't say enough about the guys in this picture. You've seen Randy, and you've seen this guy really helped to start BRAINterns with me. He's done a great job of running this thing. He's just been a fantastic partner and a promoter of not only the BRAINterns program, but our department academically. He's really, he's one of my idols. I really think he's just a fantastic guy, not to mention Nadi to his left or to your right, and all the rest of these guys. Rafael Ortiz, who's to my left in the picture there, he's recently moved to take a leadership position in one of our other hospitals in the New York area, and I have to congratulate him for the contribution he's made to our department as well. So I want to start off with a book that I read after I got hurt. I don't know if you know, but I was in a bad ski accident about a year and a half ago, and I had been reading Meditations, which is a book written by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius in 170 AD, and he basically talked about the characteristics that are important to have, and it's basically to locate goodness in thinking and doing the right thing. I think that if you do the right thing in your life, and sometimes you make mistakes, sometimes you veer from that, but if you limit your desires to doing the right thing, then nothing will hold you back. And go to later on, a German philosopher said, what matters again is doing the right thing. So doing the right thing has been passed on and on. But unfortunately, in healthcare, we have incentives that, whether it's financial or power or ego, that drive us sometimes in the wrong direction. But the overall goal is to be joyful, and having a mindset that allows you to do the right thing is important. I think this is really philosophical. This goes back to Buddha. It goes to the Greek philosophers that led to the Roman philosophers. But mindset this is the thought of the Stoic philosophy, is that with your mindset, you have your perceptions, what you're perceiving, but then you end up taking those perceptions and none of it's real. And then you attach it to an emotion and you react. And so that's the whole idea of breathing, like to take a few seconds to stop. And so when you have the perception you have, remember that other people have their own perceptions, and we tend to impart our own perceptions to other people. So stopping for a second and taking a deep breath, and remember that your will is to do the right thing, and then your actions should reflect that. So do the right thing. Stop for a second. You may feel jealousy or Schadenfreude, which is the same emotion. Schadenfreude is being happy at someone else's failure. It's important to celebrate people's successes. And I think that I was born in 1963. I was just 60 a couple weeks ago. And I was a baby of the Apollo, and I was about your age. You guys are all probably in your late teens, but when I was about 6 or 7, the Apollo missions were going on. I was totally into Apollo. I didn't even care about Mercury, which preceded Apollo by really 2 different astronaut generations. And when John Glenn died, I read about him, and I immediately his obituary really resonated with me. The reason why he was successful is because of modesty, courage, and conviction. Conviction is meaning to do the right thing. Courage is self-evident, taking some risk. And modesty means being humble. And I think these are core principles that go back really to the Buddha and to the early Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and they're manifest in our lives today. This is back in the 1960s, but I think that we as doctors especially need to carry this forward because it's important to us. And it goes without saying that neurosurgeons have big egos, but as I've gotten to know more, your ego shrinks. And I'm trying to do this every day and shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. And I think you're going to have your own knowledge set. But remember, you always ask for help. Always ask questions. Say if you don't know the answer, I don't know. It's a very powerful thing. That's the secret to your success. So the other problem we deal with is social media. And I think you guys are really the social media generation. I think, unfortunately, we tend to live an Instagram life on one hand, posting things, how great our lives are. And then on the other hand, we're going home and we're searching something else. And they're completely incongruent. What we're searching on Google is very often not what we're posting on Instagram. Google, what we're searching are questions and concerns and fears. Whereas Instagram, it's confidence and happiness, quote unquote, and pleasure. So just an example, this Seth Stevens Davidovitz is a big data scientist, and he looked at the top search descriptions on social media of women about their husbands versus their searches on Google. And the top social media post about their husbands was my husband's the best, my husband is my best friend, my husband's amazing, the greatest, so cute. Whereas the top searches were gay, a jerk, amazing, annoying, and mean. I think that sort of says it all. This is sort of the Rorschach test of our society. You know, you have the really what people are thinking about on one hand and what people are posting on the other hand. I think my lesson to you is be honest with yourself. If you're concerned about something, seek help. It's not always found on the internet, especially when it comes to your own inner self. Careful what you post on social media. You know, I've pulled back a bit myself. I think that when I post something about myself, why do I want to show everybody how great my life is? Because my life is up and down, just like yours. I have good days and bad days, and I have tough times. It's not always perfect. And when you watch social media, remember that. Remember to your perception of what you're seeing is a reality, and don't attach that to your emotion, because that's when we get into trouble. And as the young generation needs to overcome these 2 obstacles, and I, having not been through it the way you all have, I do recognize the difficulty of this. And hopefully this talk will give you a way of managing that. I think that ultimately face-to-face relations matter. That the mechanics of your success are about relationships, about people you meet. When we started Lenox Hill, it was just 4 guys that knew each other. And kindness and honesty pay off. When you're kind and honest, people respect you and they listen. And then people observe that the process and the people. I always think that we're very, very often driven by gold star stuff. You know, we're driven by money, our things on our CV, degrees, MCAT scores, SAT scores, ACT scores. These are the gold star parts of our success. They're important. They're sort of thresholds that we have to maintain in order to move on to the next thing. But ultimately, especially once you finish your training, first of all, training's never over. I'm always learning. But once you finish your formal training, you know, those types of things begin to fade away a bit. You don't get grades on tests anymore. You don't get SAT scores. You don't get board scores anymore. And life's really pass fail. And it not only is it pass fail, but it's fail a lot. And I think that you have to recognize that this early, that the way you learn going forward, you have to have a North Star principle. Like, what are you doing this for? It's not just to, you know, get those gold star things. Have a North Star, have a purpose, have a reason for your existence. And you have to start thinking about that now. I think that the keys to my personal success, I think, are having these gold star ideals, whether it's the developing a department or building a small company, having great friendships. I'm a little different. As far as the North Star things, you have to have those things too, but be fearless, take risk, embrace competition, surround yourself with talented people. Don't have jealousy and schadenfreude. Take risk, accept failure, focus on the goal. Your ego is your enemy. Shrink your ego, get more and more knowledge. It'll take care of itself. I think that, I've always made myself to be a great neurosurgeon technically, learned how to be the best bypass surgeon or vascular neurosurgeon, or the hardest cases, and push myself. But once you become a neurosurgical leader, it's different than being a leading neurosurgeon. That can't be about yourself anymore, because the factors, incentives that lead us to become neurosurgeon, all those gold star things, are frankly in opposition to the traits that are important to ourselves to become leaders. And everyone can be a leader in your community, in your hospital, in your lives, your families. Just remember this, that there are two opposing forces that you have to deal with, and make sure you are aware of that. It doesn't mean you can't seek the things that are going to get you ahead, but when you get ahead, look over your shoulder at the people behind you. I think this all kind of started really gelling with me when I was in this helicopter. This is actually the helicopter taking me away from the mountain. I'd broken my neck and I was quadriplegic in there at that time. And I remember thinking that my life was over, that I gave up, the life I had. I was leaving my old life and going to my new life. I thought I was going to be in a wheelchair, or at best be able to move my hands a little bit. I couldn't move my arms or legs, but luckily I recovered. But I went through a really deep thought process about what I was doing and why I was doing it. And it was a very, very powerful moment for me. I began reading and meditating, and this happened in January of 22. I've been meditating since March of that year, and I find meditation to be incredibly powerful. This is me being wheeled into rehab. I had a surgery on the front of my neck and the back of my neck to stabilize my spine. This was my spinal cord. You can see the spinal cord in the center of the spinal canal. That's the back of my head, and that's the front of my neck and the back of my neck. And you can see how the cord was really compressed at multiple levels, quite tightly. And I bruised my cord. Luckily, I had a small fracture. I didn't displace my spine. I thought I did, because I recovered pretty quickly. My hands are fine now, amazingly. This feels great. And but the experience taught me a lot. Marcus Aurelius, who's a Stoic philosopher, I'll get into that in a second. We talk about the mindset, but often the biggest obstacles you have become the action. That obstacles are good, failure is good. What stands in the way becomes the way. And I think that's the most important thing to remember, that difficult times lead to success. They lead to improving yourself. They make yourself better and stronger. It sucks while you're in it, but you'll get through it. And I think it's important to have that mindset. This is all the metal in my spine. Somebody said they like the spine lecture. You can see this is the hardware that I have in my neck. And yet I move my neck pretty well despite that. I had great doctors. I came back to Lenox Hill. I had my partners, Dr. Shuba and Dr. Levine, operate on me. And it was an experience of a lifetime, actually. So when I was in that helicopter, I was thinking to myself, will I walk? Will I be able to use my hands? Will I be able to operate? What's going to happen to me financially? What will my life look like? I was spinning, but ultimately the Stoics taught us that you can only control what you can control. And I think this is the book that really got me going, and I recommend it. There are many translations. The Gregory Hayes translation, I think, is thought to be the best. Donald Robertson, I read this one as well. But I started thinking about my emotions too quickly. I talked about my family, the guilt and fear I had, but what the Stoics teach us is to focus on the present and focus on what you can do right now, what doing the right thing. Only control what you can control. And that's what got me through this, because I realized that I couldn't control anything other than my recovery. And I started to feel strength coming back to me. On the helicopter, I had what's called the central cord syndrome, which is basically like a concussion of the cord. And luckily I gained all my strength back. I do have some pain in my arm from the spinal injury that I had, but over a few months, I really got all my strength back. But so who are the Stoics? Where did this philosophy come from? I give you a quick lesson in classics. Zeno was the original Stoic. He was a Phoenician, probably a Greek, Phoenician, or Cypriot. And he found the school. He actually, with the tale is that he was a very wealthy merchant in purple dye. The Greek nobility used to dye their clothes purple, and Zeno was the one who sold the dye. He crushed these certain kinds of snails to get the purple dye. That's how he created it. And he was in a shipwreck, lost all of his cargo, and was basically destitute. And went into a bookstore and read a book by Socrates, and asked the bookseller where he could meet someone like that, and ended up putting him with the man that was running the Cynic school, which, just like you guys are participating in BRAINterns and getting knowledge, back in ancient Greece, parents would take their children to different schools of philosophy. And these schools were set up in order to teach and learn. Remember, there were no TVs or cell phones, and they were just as smart as we were. And they had the stars, they had time. Their brains were just like sponges, and these people were brilliant. And the Stoics really came out of Zeno, and he left the Cynic school and founded the Stoics. And he would preach in a porch on the Agora in Athens. The Parthenon sits on a hill, and there's an Agora, like a shop area around it. And the Stoa was this area of porches. Stoa means porch in Greece. And there was a thing called the Stoa Pokyle. It was a long line of different sort of little shops. And the Pokyle part, the painted part, is there were paintings, beautiful paintings that adorned the walls of these little huts. And he taught from there. And that's where the word Stoa comes from the painted porch in Athens. Epictetus was an amazing story. He was a slave to Romans. He was Greek, but he was a Roman slave. But he was born in present-day Turkey. And as a slave, he saw that the nobility were jealous and had envy and aggression, and they were never happy. They always wanted more, and they attacked each other politically, and they gossiped, and he was more happy than they were as a slave. And because he realized that ultimately it's all about your own brain. It's all about how you perceive things, that your life basically exists up here, not elsewhere. And he really began to teach Stoicism when he was freed. And he actually, his words and thoughts went on to affect the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, which is incredible that Marcus Aurelius, who was the most powerful man on earth, knew about Epictetus. It's as if a slave the pre-Civil War slave, something they said, directly impacted one of our presidents, which, it's just think about the impact of that. And he basically took to having self-discipline. He also I think a very important thing for you all to understand, it's impossible to learn about the things that we think we already know. Learning begins with recognizing what you don't know. If you think you know everything, you can't learn anything. So ask for help. Say, I don't know. And that's the first step to really happiness and greatness. Seneca was probably one of the well-known Stoics, because a lot of his writings are available. He was probably the most powerful and wealthy of the ancient Stoics. He was basically the right-hand man of Nero, who was a terrible Roman emperor who defiled the city and the empire. And he was actually forced to commit suicide when he was thought to have been involved in an attempted assassination of Nero in the end. But he has multiple things to read. I've read Letters to Lucilius, or Letters of a Stoic, which are just fantastic essays and discussions of the Stoic theory it goes about avoiding becoming angry and what a happy life means. And also he wrote that we suffer more in imagination than reality. Absolutely. This goes to the reason why we look what other people have. We compare ourselves. Comparison is the thief of joy. I love that line. I think about it every day. Comparison is the thief of joy. Remember that. You are yourself. Just because someone else has something doesn't mean it should be yours. Take what you have. You have enough. And if you always have enough, then you rest easy in your mind. And lastly, Marcus Aurelius, I've mentioned him. He was considered one of the 5 good emperors, really before the decline of the Roman Empire. And accept the things to which fate binds you, and you love the people with whom fate brings you, but to do so with all your heart. I think that's just allow your fate to guide you, and you just accept the reality of the situation that you're in. That the meditation book itself was like a diary to himself. He didn't mean it to be published, but he basically, it was really Stoicism in practice. That's what's so beautiful about it, that it was him thinking about his life and the problems he was encountering as the most powerful man on earth. He was like, there's no one more powerful than him, and yet he had the same concerns and fears that you do, that I do. And you can't resent what happens to yourself. And he wrote these things down. And it ultimately became one of the greatest works in the history of man, and probably one of the most famous books. So Stoicism is based on 4 virtues: wisdom, which is important to have no matter what you do. I think one of the important things just I'm getting to is why I think you're all interested in medicine theoretically, or being a PA or a nurse, but being a healthcare worker, you require wisdom. So I'm going to turn this more now towards why I'm talking about this stuff, because I think this really impacts our lives as doctors, that having wisdom, having justice, honesty, being honest with yourself, fair dealing, basically having endurance, confidence. These are high-minded cheerfulness. These are basically being calm and being resourceful. And then last, the mindset, having good discipline, modesty, self-control. These things are incredibly important. Justice, wisdom, modest mindset. You have to remember these things. So this is my partner, John Bookbar. I know you probably know of him. And John and I are best friends. He's an incredible human being. He's taught me so much and impacted me greatly. You can see in this picture, we're using a microscope and a navigational tool to guide us in a neurosurgical operation. And here you have to trust your partner. Wisdom, justice, moderation, and these are incredibly important things. That these core principles of Stoicism are so important in our lives as neurosurgeons, and that's my goal in the rest of my life, is to basically bring this to our field and potentially to medicine, healthcare in general, because we need to change a little bit of the focus. I think the focus is veered into an area that unfortunately is a reflection of our society, and that by focusing these core principles and living in our heads, we're more likely to be better doctors and being happier. I think when I was in college, I was a rower. I was in the crew team, and the coach always taught us to keep our heads in the boat, because if you're racing, remember you're racing with your back to the finish line, and if you're racing, you're looking straight behind you. The coxswain's turning your boat, not you. But if you look out of the boat of your competition, that means you're not paying attention to the work. But why would I look out of the boat? Remember, comparison is a thief of joy. Keep your head in the boat. Pull as hard as you can. Looking out of the boat's not going to make you faster. It can only make you slower. So keep your head in the boat. And it's really a lesson of life. I can only be the best I can be. I've made mistakes. I continue to make them. But what we have to do is focus on the best we can be. Control what you control. Control your wills in action. And I think this is just as how this looks. This is actually the starting line of the 2000 Olympics in Brazil, in Rio. 2008 Olympics in Rio. And you can see the U.S. in lane 5 here. If you're from the U.S., I don't know what a lot of other countries here: New Zealand, Germany, Great Britain, Netherlands, and Poland is in lane 1. But watch these guys come off the line. These are the best rowers ever in the world. And look at their heads. They're looking straight back. No one looks out of the boat. They're pulling as hard as they can. They're going off the start line about 42 strokes a minute, which is just insane. But sometimes the boat veers off. Sometimes you get pulled one way or the other, and that's what your mentor is for. That's what the coxswain is. Look, if you look here, you can see in lane 3 that boat's a little offline, the Netherlands, and the coxswain has to bring them back straight and towards their finish line. I think that the principles of happiness are really have to do with your head. And the thing that I've worked on the most, besides comparison being the thief of joy, are these things. That it's very easy when you see somebody successful, somebody gets a better grade than you do, somebody gets more money than you do, somebody has a nicer car, somebody has gone to a better college, somebody has better SAT scores, somebody has better MCAT scores. It goes on. And that jealousy of other people doesn't help you. Just doesn't, because someone else did well or somebody else got something, doesn't mean you deserve it. And why wouldn't, that doesn't take anything away from you. Even if you're competing head to head for something, somebody has to win and you'll have another opportunity. Jealousy and schadenfreude, as I said, the same emotion. Schadenfreude is a German word for basically being happy at someone else's failures or losses. Like when you see someone else do poorly and you're happy that they got screwed up. That's the same emotion as jealousy. You have to get rid of that. That's when you start to, those two emotions are the sort of the core of our own unhappiness. And I think that what I try to do today is if someone else is successful or gets something that I want, or I think I might want, or maybe I didn't even want, put my mind. The Buddhist monks did this. Pretend you're them, and that's called mudita. It means being happy for someone else's happiness. Freudenfreude. That takes work. Unfortunately, our egos and our inner self is more built for jealousy. But try mudita. Try practicing that. You have to meditate on that. And I think about it all the time. If I see someone else happy, I see when someone else gets something, I've turned my brain around and I'm happy for them. Start now. Don't wait till you're 60 years old. I think positive visualization is important. Negative visualization also is important. That you have to meditate on what could go wrong. Have a partner to help you. Have someone to work with. This allows you to prevent, or adjust to potential failure, because failures are going to happen to you. Everyone fails. Familiarize, reevaluate. You have to practice. Don't be afraid to take risk. This is a photograph I showed us in other talks of me. I was driving in Scotland and I got out of my car and I saw this rainbow and I took this picture and I thought the truck ruined the picture, but it's really a metaphor for life, that it's important to chase rainbows and chase ideals and North Stars, but you can fail. The road may curve, you may get hit by a truck. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you break your neck. I don't wish that on you, but it does happen. But overcome those things and think about the opportunities that they afford you and how to make yourself a better person as a source of that thing. So, this is actually the original Greek stoa, that sort of square area off to the left. That's where the Stoa Poikile used to sit. I went and visited Athens with my wife last year. This is the Parthenon. I was lucky enough to go and visit Athens. It was just really an incredible experience after doing all the reading I've read. But remember that the practices of Stoicism are found universally in time, in the halls of ancient Greek philosophy, or even in the operating room. And that exemplars of Stoicism have proven that it's possible to tune out the external and focus on what you can control. Burn away the negative outside force like deadwood and simply always do what is in your mind is right. And sometimes it's hard. I mean, sometimes you reach a crossroads where you're not really sure what the right thing is. That's when you need to think and take your time and live in the moment. There's no rush. Don't make hasty decisions. That this is an important thing to practice. And as Epictetus says, what one ought one to say then as each hardship comes, I was practicing for this. I was training for this. That's really the core essence of being a neurosurgeon, training and practicing. So be unselfish, be useful, be humble and kind. Tim McGraw's song, Humble and Kind, is like my favorite song. Avoid greed and selfishness. Remember that our life is a gift. You only live once. Get today right. If today's not great, then you always have tomorrow, hopefully. But live in the moment. We're dying every day. That's another concept that Seneca used to say, that one day is gone and it's gone forever. Remember that. This is I think I've read this before. It's from an anthropologist, Margaret Mead, about the importance of essentially helping other people and caring for other people. I think that she was asked about she was an anthropologist. She was like and a philosopher. She was like the Oprah Winfrey of the 1960s. She'd have a lot of Instagram followers if she was alive. And she died in the 1970s. And she was, as an anthropologist, someone asked her when she thought she saw the first sign of civilization in an ancient culture. And I think as a student, they thought you'd see, tools or fire on the walls or paintings on the walls. And no, she said that in the animal, that the first sign of civilization was finding a broken femur that had healed. The human femur that had obviously been broken and healed, because basically if you break your leg in the animal kingdom, you die. You can't run from danger, get to the river, or drink or food. You're essentially meat for prowling beasts. No animal survives a broken leg in the wild. I mean, when I see a bird, or which I've seen, or I haven't necessarily seen a dog, but like especially a bird with a broken leg, they're not going to last for long, although they can fly. But no animal survives long enough for the bone to heal. But finding a broken femur that had healed is proof that someone had carried them, bound them up, and protected them. And that helping someone through difficulty is where civilization starts. Mead said, "We are best when we serve others." And I think the combination of having the mindset, the mechanics, and then doing something good for people, doing something good for mankind, helping others is the essence of being a human. And that's what I try to do. I err in my ways sometimes. I'm not perfect, but that's what I'm striving to do. And I have gone through things that have been positive and negative, but ultimately that's really what we're here to do. And I will continue try to focus on it and impart to people who ask. So remember, it's all about the team of people you work with, the team, the team, the team. Take the view from above. We are part of a larger whole, and surrender to your insignificance to realize your significance, that all we can do is do the best we can. And in doing so, we set an example for one another and for the people that we come into contact with. And obviously, our families are our most important team. My kids, my wife. I haven't been perfect, but I try to do the best I can in this world. And so I'm going to just end with this video. For those of you who've seen my talk, I may have seen this before. That's okay. It's still, I just like watching it when I finish. It gives me a chance to think. This is from the movie Yesterday. It's a great movie. It didn't get for some reason the critics didn't like it, but it's basically a story of this Indian British kid who is an excellent musician, but he's like a beat musician. He has a really tight girlfriend he loves, and he does no one's ever heard of him, and he sort of goes around playing music. And one day there's this massive electrical storm on the earth, and everybody forgets about the Beatles except for him. And so he starts playing Beatles songs, and people love the songs, and he becomes like an international superstar playing Beatles songs. And eventually, kind of people, the press, he becomes the superstar, like a Taylor Swift kind of success. And the press starts asking questions like, "Where's Abbey Road? Have you been to Abbey Road? Or how do you know about Liverpool? Have you ever lived in Liverpool?" And he starts realizing that these songs are really a reflection of someone else, and he realizes that he's just all about power, and he wants this success, this attention, yet his core principles are gone, and his girlfriend leaves him, and he's miserable. And it's really a reflection of what I've been trying to talk about, that just because you're famous doesn't make you happy. Just because you're getting people who think you're amazing on Instagram doesn't mean when you go back home, you're not Googling stuff that how miserable you are. And so this stuff really doesn't matter at all. And he realized this himself, and he actually realizes that just because the Beatles don't exist, John Lennon still must exist. And so he basically tracks John Lennon down. And this is the time when he goes and meets John Lennon. Remember, he's lost his girlfriend. He's a superstar, so he theoretically has everything. And he's going to meet John Lennon, who's never been a Beatle, who never became a Beatle. And John Lennon has a line here. It goes, "It's just fab." That's what the Beatles used to say. It's just fab. That's where it comes from. So I'll play it. The other interesting thing about this that I've learned is that the Indian culture was really dominated by the British until 1947, and they were subservient to the British, and the British brought their Western civilization to a very poor country and dominated it in India. And when the British left, and you had Gandhi and Nehru, and it grew into this great country. When the Beatles in the 1960s were overwhelming the United States, they actually went to visit India. They went to an ashram, all of them. And in fact, George Harrison learned how to play the sitar from a really famous Indian sitar player, and his name escapes, Rami. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But it was so interesting to hear, because the Indians loved the Beatles, and it was really to them, it was the British. Instead of the British domination, here were the most famous British musicians coming to India, and it gave them confidence, and it made them feel like they were a country. And the Beatles really brought that to India. They brought that kind of respect back to the Indians, and I think that's probably why they chose an Indian actor to do this part. And so that's underneath this scene. So let's watch it, and then I'll finish.
Oh, Dr. Langer, can you turn up the volume just a little bit?
Sorry, when I was videoing that, I was using my cell phone. I was like, I was looking up and down. So it did kind of the subtitles sort of go on and off. I hope that was loud enough and you got the message. So thank you for the time. I don't really like virtual talks, but I hopefully this was a valuable asset to all of you and that you get the message. Maybe I can meet some of you face to face someday. I think that would be a lot more fun than this. I hate talking to myself. Appreciate the time, Hannah. So thank you.
No, this was amazing. Do you have some time to answer a few questions from
Yeah,
the students?
yeah, sure.
One of the questions we got was, how do you deal with the constant pressure that comes with such a great responsibility of being the chair of the department and also just being a neurosurgeon and treating these patients?
You know, it's a work in evolution. I think at the beginning, I don't think I was as aware of how difficult this was, and ignorance is bliss. And then over time, you fail, and then you have to go home and you cry and you talk to families. So,
And and in kind of conjunction with that, so why didn't you, like, many people who've been through traumatic experiences, they're not able to necessarily move forward as quickly as you were. And what was really your motivation to, go back to work and to, and like to continue along your recovery journey, but also get back to being the neurosurgeon and leader that you are?
I mean, I didn't have a choice. It's my life. I think that the lesson for me was, I had to get better. So my first reaction was just to make myself better, and I had to see how much better I could get. It's much different just being able to walk and move my arms than to actually, do a bypass or clip an aneurysm. There's a big threshold to cross. So in the end, I think once I got my function back and got my, hands back, I knew I could operate. And then it was a matter of putting my head down. But I think my family took a hit. My wife in particular, it was hard for her to go through this with me, and it was a very, very complicated time, and it's still evolving. I think I've learned to continue to change at work and try to make myself better and make myself a better doctor. I'm as good of a surgeon as I'm ever going to be. I just want to be like more of a philosopher surgeon, I guess, and make sure I bring some of those lessons to the bedside.
And we have a few questions about how you decided to pursue neurosurgery, and why did you decide specifically on cerebrovascular surgery?
I get asked that question all the time. My dad I thought I wanted to be a cardiologist. My dad had a stroke, and I just got interested in neuroscience. I love neuroanatomy, and then I saw a couple of residents in neurosurgery sort of put a ventriculostomy, which is a catheter that goes into through the skull, and you basically put drill a hole and then put a catheter in, and spinal fluid comes out, and they did it in the emergency room, and I was like, holy crap, that's amazing! Like, I watched them do that, and the first time you see the brain is just awe-inspiring. Even to today, I have case next week. I'm going to be doing some bypass. I'm already excited about it. It's just it's a beautiful thing, and I get sucked in like that. I think the vascular piece, just because it's the hardest thing to do. I'm a terrible. I abuse myself. Like, I always try to do the hardest thing. It's just part of my nature, and I think that at the time, doing open vascular was, all the crazies did that. Either the most talented or the most ambitious, the most narcissistic, or the most egomaniacal. Perhaps I was a combination of all of them. But today those types of cases aren't done that way anymore. They're done primarily with catheters. So the big FU to that group of all the egos that did it was that these catheter guys now came in and blew us up, and that's been a huge, very difficult transition for me. It's because I try to work to be as hard as I could at vascular, which is the hardest thing and the most dangerous, and yet now it's not even a valuable skill set in some places, because what we could use to do with open surgery now get done with a catheter just as safely. And I think that's a lesson. You never know how the world is going to change, and You can't change technology. You can't change success and, the improvements. That's why you always try to make yourself better. Just because you're the best at what you do, what if it's like that Harrison Ford scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where the guy, pulls out like this machete and starts flipping it around, and he just pulls out a gun and shoots the guy. That's the metaphor for what can happen. You can be the best at karate, but if somebody has a gun, you're done. And so I think that you always have to be aware of those and change and have an open mind and recognize what your skill set is, and not just value it, but value making yourself better and making changes. That's what I've tried to do. That's what Lenox Hill is really a reflection of, honestly. And that's why we do what we do.
We have a few students who were asking about what is your most read book for like summer, and just recommendations for summer reading. This is a great time to, students have some time away from their studies to read up on some Stoic philosophy or some any books that you have recommendations for.
Well, my favorite Stoic book is Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. That's the first one that I read. It's he is the modern Stoic philosopher. I recommend listening to his podcast, The Daily Stoic. He also has a Daily Dad. If any of you are dads, I don't know if you're dads, but I love Ryan Holiday's books and his podcast. I also, my favorite book potentially of all time, something that I've read was very inspiring to me. And what's so amazing about it is now there's a movie coming out next week about Robert Oppenheimer. And I read American Prometheus in the early I think it came out in like 2005. A fantastic book. It's a big book, but I think he represents to me the ultimate. I don't think he was a Stoic, but I think what he was a genius individual who was probably the one at the time after World War II. He helped to develop the atomic bomb. His story is so incredible that his downfall at the hands of the McCarthyites who accused him of communism, which was actually false. So he is a complicated person, but the book was just probably the best book I've ever read. And the movie's coming out, so it's kind of nice to read the book and watch the movie. It's amazing that it came out now. I never thought they'd make a book about Robert Oppenheimer, but nonetheless, I think it comes at a very unique time for us in this world, and seeing people just do good things for mankind. And this was the question is whether this really was a good thing or not that he did. That was his conflict. And as neurosurgeons, we try to do good, and we're trying to do the same thing. I'm not building an atomic bomb, but certainly I think that the name of the book is American Prometheus. That's the name of the book. So try those first to start. Most read a great book right now. If you're into like religious history, it's called An End to Suffering. It's basically a history of the Buddha, which is amazing. This book is one of the best. Is named by Pankaj Mishra at Pankal Mishra Mishra. This book is amazing, and An End to Suffering. So there you go. The Buddha in the World. It's basically a memoir combined with a history of the Buddha, and it's got religious history in it, Indian history in it. Just a fantastic book.
Well, and kind of along the lines of technology and just kind of where neurosurgery is headed, what do you think the future of neurosurgery holds?
Well, I think it's getting a lot more diverse, just as medicine is. I mean, I think 80% of y'all are women, so that's fantastic. I think Lenox Hill neurosurgery will look a lot different in the next generation than it does now. I think we're seeing much more finesse, which means better work hours. We're seeing types of things that are less invasive and less destructive and more constructive. We're seeing functional neurosurgery make a rise, meaning like little catheters and electrodes and stimulating the brain or using ultrasound. So I think that the future really is not going to lie with the stuff that I learned to do. We're like the cowboys, and I'm not sure I would have been attracted to that. I like the big operations and the blood and the big openings. And fortunately for the patients, that's going away. But unfortunately for people who like to do those operations, they're not going to be happening anymore. There are certain operations that probably will, skull-based surgery and certain endoscopic surgeries are still going to remain. But in the end, we're treating more and more with less and less. I think that's the way to put it. That more and more problems are being treated with less and less invasive things, and less invasive materials, and invasive drugs, less invasive everything. So when you're my age, I think the field will look very, very different. And I look forward to that, both what we do and the complexions and the sexes of the doctors who are doing those things. And to me, that's very exciting. I think it's going to soften our field, make it a little bit more empathetic, a little more thoughtful. It's not as much, the ego will not be as fashion forward, and we'll have a better set of circumstances to operate with and attract great people. One of the reasons why we're doing BRAINterns is to attract young women to our profession. And we want the best and the brightest to go into neurosurgery. It's a fantastic field. I love my job, and I would encourage you to consider it. It's just one of the best ways to spend your time and your life. And I hope that of the 200 some odd people that are watching this today, that even if just a few of you are affected and end up as neurosurgeons because of this, I would be very grateful to hear from you someday in 20 years or so, that, hey, when I watched that Zoom, that's when I decided to do this. And I think that's the point, and that's the reason why we're doing BRAINterns, frankly. So now you know the secret sauce.
I'll ask one last question before you go, but do you have any advice for students who are in their undergraduate studies who are wanting to pursue med school and neurosurgical residency? Any advice for these students who are starting that journey?
Well, I think this talk is the best advice.
Yeah.
I think that's number one. I mean, obviously, there's some reality. You have to work very hard. If you're not in medical school, you got to get MCAT score. That's the gold star things. Just because you have this higher calling and this romantic notion of how to live, it still doesn't, unfortunately, get you good MCAT score. That's just unfortunate truth. So you have to deal with realities of, that's kind of stoic. It's like the reality of the situation is really the reality. You can't sort of blink your eyes and think it away. So when you have those thresholds of things, really hunker down and study for them. Don't do anything else. It's your one chance, and you can repeat them, obviously, but you don't want to do it more than once. It sucks. So when you have those thresholds for your SAT, work your butt off. For your MCAT, work your butt off. These are really, really important. And there's nothing else that will get you there other than you and your hard work. And they're measures of nothing. They have nothing to do, they have nothing to do with how good of a student you're going to be or how good of a doctor you're going to be. But the trouble is the committees have to have something objective they can land on. It doesn't mean if you didn't get the score, you wouldn't have been a good doctor. It just means they've decided this number is the threshold. And that's just the way it is. You're not going to change it. So those are opportunities. You have to look at them that way. So the best advice is to work hard in school, do the best you can, do the right thing, have mudita, don't look at other people, make you the best you can be. That's all you can do. And then when you have those opportunities, hunker down, and that's it. And if you don't quite get there, there'll be other paths, other avenues to pursue. There's always other opportunities. And there are plenty of people that didn't quite get to medical school or whatever, and get the college they wanted to, that became incredibly happy and successful doing something else. And so if it happens that you don't quite make it, you know what? That's your opportunity again. That's your obstacle. And the obstacle is the way.
Well, amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Langer. I really enjoyed hearing your talk, and I know that the students are all very gracious. That I'm getting comments. Thank you, very inspirational. This was incredible. We're just so grateful just to have you leading our team and at the helm of Lenox Hill Neurosurgery, as both a leader and innovator, and also mentor to all of us here. And thank you so much again for joining us today. Dr. Langer is going to speak next Friday as well for one more Chairman's Corner. So we're excited to have him back. And I'm just going to share my screen really quick with some links to our social media channels, as well as our Slack channel and Facebook group. You can take a screenshot of this. I'll also post the links in our chat so you can easily register for the Slack channel, and join our Facebook group. We're also on social media. We love social media. It's a great way for us to stay in touch with you and to share about more free educational opportunities like BrainTerns, and also share what's going on at Lenox Hill, not just in our practice, but culturally, and getting to highlight our team members and really showcase everyone who is integral to our patients' success and outcomes. So follow us on Instagram, follow us on Threads, follow us on TikTok, follow us on Twitter for as long as Twitter is going to last. We hope you guys enjoyed today's talk. Again, I'm going to post the links in the chat right now. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email is hflam@northwell.edu. Dr. Langer, is it okay if I share your email with the students?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. So I got to stop sharing my screen. Here we go. So here is the invitation to the Slack channel. I'm going to pull up the Facebook group.
Should I type my my email in?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you so much. I'm going to post the link to the schedule again. We are not meeting tomorrow or Sunday. You guys have the day off, and we're actually done for the day today. So Friday, you get, have a shorter day. We will not be having a webinar tomorrow or Sunday. The Zoom did not let me take those days off the schedule. So don't worry about joining us. All these webinars will be available on our YouTube channel. Quinn is uploading them, and we apologize if there has been a little bit of a lapse in uploading the videos. Quinn is amazing. She just had hand surgery and she's still uploading all these videos. So we're so grateful for her. If you could just send Quinn some healing energy, I know she'll really appreciate that. Here is my email if anybody has any questions. Oh, yay, so happy. So we have a new favorite talk. Today has been Deliana's favorite day. So we have a new favorite talk.
Well, wait till next week. Probably the worst talk next week. I have to figure out what to talk about. I'm exhausted from that.
Oh my gosh, no, it was incredible. No, I know that next week's going to be amazing as well. And thank you so much for taking the time today to speak with our students. We're so grateful for you and your support of the BrainTerns programming throughout the years. So thank you again, Dr. Langer.
Okay, take care, Hannah. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I'll post Dr. Langer's email one more time. My computer is ready for the weekend. It's not loading very well. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This has been an amazing week. This is my first BrainTerns cohort as well. So I'm really happy that I could join you guys. Happy birthday again, Malu. I hope you have an amazing day. And oh, by the way, I'm wearing a t-shirt that's for glioblastoma awareness. Just to let you guys know, glioblastoma awareness day is next Wednesday, July 19th. So be sure to spread the word. Glioblastoma is currently the worst type of brain cancer you can get, and we need as much people and as many people to be aware of this disease so that we continue to innovate and find safer and more effective treatments for patients. So spread the word, and we're so excited to see you guys next week. Of course, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure working with you guys, and I hope you all have a fabulous weekend. Thank you again, and take care. Bye.